Tuesday, 8 December 2015. Nlandla Nene is the Minister of Finance. He has held the job since 2014. He is regarded, by markets and colleagues alike, as competent, cautious, and slightly allergic to bad ideas. On his desk, a document raising cost concerns about a proposed nuclear procurement program. Raising cost concerns about expensive things is, broadly speaking, what finance ministers are for. Outside, the rand stands at 13 Rand 80 to the US dollar. It is a Tuesday. Nothing about this Tuesday suggests it will be remembered. This is the story of how it was remembered anyway. 12 cartoons, one phone call, one small currency mascot about to have a very bad night. 8 p.m. A statement arrives at the SABC newsroom. President Zuma has relieved Nlandla Nene of his duties as Minister of Finance. His replacement? Des Van Rooyen. No reason is given. None is requested with any urgency that evening because nobody has had time to formulate the question yet. The news anchor asks, reasonably, whether someone can confirm this. Someone confirms this. This is the hook of the Nenegate story. Not the rand, though that's coming. Not the JSE, though that's coming too. The hook is this. A sitting finance minister, doing his job competently, is removed on a Tuesday night with the kind of notice usually reserved for canceling a dentist appointment. Somewhere in Pretoria, a small, anxious currency mascot has just turned his head towards a television. He does not yet know what is about to happen to him. He is about to find out very quickly. Nlandla Nene, Deputy Minister of Finance from 2008, Minister of Finance from 2014. Known broadly for fiscal discipline, a phrase that sounds boring until you consider the alternative. In particular, Nene was known for asking pointed questions about the affordability of large projects, including a proposed nuclear procurement program with a price tag that varied, depending on who you asked, by hundreds of billions of rand. Asking for affordability numbers before approving very large numbers is, in most jobs, simply called doing the job. Rating agencies and markets generally regard a finance minister who does this as a stabilizing presence. On the evening of 8 December 2015, Nlandla Nene is in his office, working through cost review files. He has no reason to think this evening is different from any other. He is about to be very surprised.
The call comes. Nene's expression goes from calm to carefully blank, the specific blankness of a person receiving information they will need several hours to fully process. Exactly how the decision was made and by whom and why Des Van Rooyen specifically was selected has never been comprehensively explained in public, not at the time and not fully since. There were urgent conversations. There were several of them. They were not televised. What is verifiable is the outcome and the speed of it. A sitting finance minister removed on a Tuesday evening with his replacement announced the same night. Outside the window, a small currency mascot is leaning in, trying to hear what's being said. He will not need to hear it for long. He is about to feel it directly.
Des Van Rooyen, ANC backbencher, former mayor of Merifong, sworn in as Minister of Finance on the evening of 8 December 2015, with what can charitably be described as minimal advance notice to the country and reportedly to himself. He arrives at the Treasury with an overnight bag. This detail is not symbolic, it is simply true, and it will turn out to be more accurate than anyone intended. He is also accompanied by a small number of advisors nobody at the Treasury recognizes, who appear to know the building better than the new minister does. Their names will come up again in other investigations, for other reasons much later. Outside, the rand is on its tiptoes, 13.8 rand to the dollar. It is still Tuesday night. The markets in Asia are about to open. Markets do not sleep just because Pretoria does. As news of the cabinet reshuffle reaches Tokyo, then London, then everywhere else, the rand begins to fall sharply. By Wednesday morning, the rand has lost roughly 10% of its value against the US dollar overnight. This is not a gradual market correction. This is a single news event reflected in a single overnight number. For context, this is the kind of move usually associated with a coup, a war, or a sovereign default. Not on paper, a cabinet reshuffle. Markets, it turns out, do not evaluate cabinet reshuffles on paper. They evaluate them on what they imply. What this one implied, to a great many people holding South African assets at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday, was the person who was keeping a lid on certain spending decisions has just been removed. And nobody can yet say who, if anyone, is keeping the lid on now.
The Johannesburg Stock Exchange opens on Wednesday morning to a sea of red. Banks, retailers, insurers, property companies, the kind of large, boring, pension fund-friendly shares that most South Africans own without realizing it, all fall sharply. Estimates of the total value wiped from the JSE in the immediate aftermath run well over $170 billion. This is not an abstract number on a screen in Sandton. It is, in large part, other people's retirement savings. The taxpayer in the hard hat is holding his retirement fund statement. He has not opened the new one yet. He does the maths anyway, because the maths is not hard. It is, in fact, the kind of maths you can do by looking at a ticker board and going pale. Somewhere, a small currency mascot is sitting in a crater. He did not do this on purpose. Nobody asked him whether he wanted to do this. He is, in this respect, very similar to most of the people affected by it.
Within roughly 48 hours, the pressure becomes hard to ignore. Business leaders, banking bodies, ratings agencies quietly recalculating their own numbers. And notably, the ANC's own alliance partners, COSATU and the SACP, both publicly expressing concern. None of these conversations were televised. Most of them were never fully detailed in public at all. What is known is that they happened, that there were a great many of them in a very short time, and that they were not conversations expressing satisfaction. A queue forms outside the ANC's headquarters. Nobody in it is shouting. South Africans of a certain generation will recognize this particular kind of queue, the one where everybody is being extremely calm, which is itself the message. Somewhere in Pretoria, a switchboard operator is looking at a board where every single light is lit at once. He has, at this point, given up trying to answer any of them individually.
Sunday, 13 December 2015. 4 days after his appointment, Des Van Rooyen is removed as Minister of Finance. He leaves with the same overnight bag he arrived with. It is, by this point, simply accurate to call it that. His replacement, Pravin Gordhan, who served as finance minister from 2009 to 2014, and who arrives this time with a much larger suitcase. Markets, broadly, interpret this as a good sign. Markets are not always wrong about everything. A nameplate is changed for the second time in under a week. The sign maker has, by his own account, done this exact job before, for some of the exact same names in a different order. He does not appear surprised. He appears, if anything, mildly nostalgic. In his crater, the Rand looks up at the new sign. He does not stand up yet, but for the first time since Tuesday night, he is looking in a hopeful direction.
With Gordhan reappointed, the Rand recovers some ground, climbing back from its worst levels towards a new resting point, somewhere around 14 Rand to 1450 Rand to the dollar. Some ground, not all of it. The old position, 1380 Rand, remains visible as a faint outline on the chart, the way a watermark stays on a wall after a flood. The Rand is standing again. He is just standing somewhere slightly lower than before. Economists at the time described this as a lasting increase in South Africa's risk premium. The extra cost, baked permanently into borrowing and investment decisions, of being a country where this kind of thing can apparently happen on a Tuesday. The Rand gives a small thumbs up. It is genuine. It is also visibly tired. He's okay. He's mostly okay. The plaque next to him, risk premium permanently adjusted, will still be there in every cartoon for the rest of this episode.
Here is the bill. 170 billion Rand plus wiped from the JSE. The Rand down roughly 10% overnight. Bond yields up and staying up. The cost of government borrowing higher and staying higher. Des von Rooyen's tenure, 4 days, start to finish. And line 5, public confidence in the cabinet appointment process, also down, and notably harder to put a number on, which is precisely why it's the line nobody likes looking at directly. The total remains, in a meaningful sense, still being calculated. Risk premiums don't send invoices. They just quietly raise the price of everything, indefinitely, for everyone, payable by anyone with a pension, a bond, or anything that gets imported, which in South Africa is most things. The taxpayer in the hard hat reads line 5 again. The Rand reads it with him. Neither of them says anything else. There isn't really anything else to say.
The storage room, where the props go when the news cycle moves on. The fire pool sign is still here, exactly where it was left. So is the scoreboard from another Tuesday entirely. And now, the Rand, sitting on a crate, his height chart propped against the wall, the gap between where he used to stand and where he stands now still clearly visible, even at rest. Des van Rooyen is here too, overnight bag finally unpacked. 4 days. It felt longer. The Rand agrees. Nobody needs to say much more than that. The taxpayer in the hard hat walks in, sees everyone, and gives a small nod. Of course you're all here too. Where else would you be? Nenegate. One phone call. One Tuesday night. A bill that's still, in a sense, being paid. Mzansi Eina. Because, somebody has to say it.